This happened in late October of 2014 on a cross-country run hauling frozen meat. I took the job because it paid extra for overnight miles, and I needed the money bad after the divorce. I had been sleeping in the cab for weeks. My body felt like it belonged to the truck more than to me. Gas station food, energy drinks, caffeine pills, and short naps in rest areas had turned my sense of time into something soft and unreliable. Nights blended together. Days passed without meaning. I drove because stopping meant thinking. That night, I was moving east through New Mexico, past Tucumcari, on a stretch of road that felt endless. The land was flat and dark, with no towns and no lights. The stars were bright in a way that made the sky feel low, like it was pressing down on the road. My GPS kept cutting out, the screen freezing and then going blank. I had learned to drive by mile markers and instinct. I knew where I was supposed to be by feel more than by any map. Around 2:30 in the morning, a tire pressure warning flickered on the dash. It didn't scream or flash. It just sat there, calm and steady. I slowed and watched the mirrors. The trailer looked fine, riding level, no sparks, no smoke. Still, I had learned not to ignore warnings. I eased onto the shoulder around 2:40 and rolled to a stop. The engine idled low, the sound steady but tired, like me. When I stepped out, the air felt wrong. That was the first thing I noticed. It wasn't cold like it should have been. It smelled like hot dirt mixed with wet metal, the kind of smell you get near a rail yard after rain, even though it hadn't rained. My boots crunched on gravel as I walked back along the trailer. The road was empty in both directions. No headlights, no taillights, just black asphalt and open land. I crouched near the rear axle with my flashlight, checking the tires one by one. They looked fine. No bulges, no nails. The pressure sensor must have glitched. As I stood up, the beam of my light passed over the ground beside the trailer, and I saw the footprints. They were bare. No boot marks, no tread, just skin impressions pressed into the dirt and fine gravel. They were big, longer than my boots, with toes that stretched forward more than seemed normal. What made my stomach tighten was how they sat there. They didn't lead in from the road. They didn't lead away into the dark. They appeared near the trailer and stopped, like someone had stood there and then vanished straight up. I stood still for a long time, listening to the engine idle and the faint sound of wind across the plain. My heart beat harder than it should have. I told myself it was fatigue. I had been awake too long. Shadows look wrong when you're tired. The human brain fills gaps with fear when it needs sleep. I forced myself to breathe slow. I walked around the trailer once more, shining the light wider. I didn't see anyone. I didn't see more prints, just those few marks near the rear. I climbed back into the cab and pulled onto the road. I didn't linger. The tires hummed on the asphalt. The warning light stayed on for a minute, then went off. I told myself it was a faulty sensor. I turned the radio up for noise, anything to break the silence. It scanned through stations and settled on nothing useful. I left it low and drove. About 10 minutes later, something hit the side of the trailer. It wasn't a crash. It felt like a shove, a solid push that rolled through the frame. The steering wheel tugged slightly. I checked the mirrors. The road behind me was empty. The trailer lights were steady. I kept driving. Then it happened again. Another shove, a little harder this time. The trailer sway changed. I could feel it through the seat, like weight shifting inside an empty box. Frozen meat rides solid. Pallets don't slide unless something goes very wrong. I slowed and watched the mirrors until my eyes hurt. Nothing followed me. No vehicle. No animal crossing the road. The land stayed flat and dark. The mile markers passed one by one. I counted them without meaning to, grounding myself in numbers. At 3:11 in the morning, the engine lost power. The truck didn't die fully. It just dropped, like someone had lifted their foot off the throttle. The dash lights flickered. The radio turned to static. In that static, I heard breathing. It was slow and heavy, not shaped like words. It rose and fell in a way that matched a chest filling and emptying. My hands tightened on the wheel until my fingers hurt. I stared at the road ahead, afraid to look anywhere else. The engine caught again a second later, power returning like nothing had happened. The breathing faded back into hiss. I didn't stop. I didn't slow. I drove until the sky started to pale and the stars thinned out. When daylight finally came, the road looked ordinary again. Brown land, distant fences. A truck stop appeared like a promise. I pulled in and parked where other rigs sat in neat lines. In the clear light, everything looked normal. I walked around the trailer. The tires were fine. The pressure warning stayed off. I checked the ground where I had parked. No footprints, no marks, nothing out of place. I slept hard that day and woke up feeling hollow. On the next leg of the trip, I stayed on main routes even if it cost me time. Weeks later, when I was home and had space to think, I went over everything again with a calmer head. The footprints made sense first. That area runs near oil fields and service roads. I later learned that some workers walk barefoot to keep boots clean when climbing equipment. Long hours and rough work change how feet look. Prints in loose dirt don't always tell a clean story. The way they seemed to appear and stop was just the edge of where the ground changed from gravel to packed soil. The shoves against the trailer lined up with a stretch of crosswind that night. Flat land hides wind until it hits you sideways. An empty gap inside a trailer can make pressure move strange, even with a full load. I had felt it before, just not that sharp. The stall traced back to a loose ground wire on the battery that I found weeks later during maintenance. Vibration can make power dip for a moment and come back. Radios pick up interference when that happens. Static can sound like anything when you're tired. The human brain hunts for patterns. Breathing is one of the first things it finds. The smell on the shoulder came from hot brakes and wet soil near a low drainage area I didn't notice in the dark. Heat, metal, and dirt make a sharp mix that sticks in memory. What scared me most wasn't something outside the truck. It was how close I was to falling apart without realizing it. Lack of sleep, stress, and isolation had narrowed my thinking until normal events stacked into something else. That night forced me to change how I worked. I stopped taking overnight runs for extra pay. I slept real hours. I ate better food. I stayed on routes with traffic and lights. I never took that stretch east of Tucumcari again. Not because it was cursed or dangerous, but because it showed me how thin the line is between control and panic when you live alone on the road too long. The danger wasn't the mile. It was me pushing past my limits and trusting that nothing would break. I had been driving trucks for most of my adult life, long enough that the cab felt more like home than any apartment I ever paid rent for. I knew the habits that kept me alive. I checked mirrors often. I trusted my gut. I avoided shortcuts at night. That night, I broke one rule because I was tired and wanted to save time. I was hauling dry freight across a stretch of rural highway that cut through farmland and low forest. The kind of road built decades ago, before interstates took over. 2 lanes, narrow shoulders, deep ditches. The GPS suggested it as a faster option to avoid construction. I knew better, but the clock was tight and my eyes burned from hours of staring into darkness. It was late enough that the world felt abandoned. No houses close to the road. No traffic. The sky was low and clouded, holding back moonlight. My headlights swallowed the road and nothing else. Cornfields stretched out on both sides, dead and dry, stalks snapping in the wind. The smell of soil and rot leaked through the vents even with the windows shut. I noticed the pickup truck after about 20 minutes. Came up behind me fast, then slowed and stayed there. Old model, square body, faded paint. No company logo, no plates on the front. I clocked that without thinking much about it. Some states did not require front plates. The truck did not pass. It did not fall back. It sat close enough that its headlights filled my mirrors, close enough to be annoying. I eased off the throttle to let it go around. It stayed put. I sped up a little. It matched me. That was the first sign something was off. Most drivers on those roads either passed or disappeared. Hanging back like that felt intentional. The road twisted through shallow bends. Trees crept closer. The pickup stayed steady behind me, never drifting, never changing lanes. I watched for a turn signal or brake lights. Nothing. I told myself it was just another tired driver riding my bumper. That happened all the time. Still, my shoulders stayed tight. Another 10 minutes passed. The pickup flashed its high beams once. Not a warning, not a mistake, just a quick flash. I did not respond. The GPS signal cut out soon after. The screen froze, then went dark. I knew roughly where I was, but that road had no easy pull-offs. Just gravel farm paths leading into fields or tree lines. None of them looked safe. The pickup moved closer. So close that I could no longer see its headlights fully. Just glare and the dark shape of its hood. I eased onto the brakes lightly, enough to slow but not enough to trigger my trailer brakes hard. The pickup did not back off. It stayed tight. The air inside the cab felt stale. I adjusted in my seat and checked my door locks, even though I knew that would not matter if something happened at speed. I came around a bend and saw a set of reflectors ahead marking a narrow bridge. No guardrails, just concrete edges and a shallow creek below. I centered my truck carefully and held steady. Halfway across the bridge, the pickup surged forward and bumped my trailer. Not hard enough to jackknife me, hard enough to send a jolt through the frame and into my spine. I gripped the wheel and kept the truck straight. My heart slammed against my ribs. I did not brake. I did not swerve. I kept going. Once off the bridge, I pushed the throttle. The engine groaned but picked up speed. The pickup stayed with me. Another bump came, harder this time. The trailer shuddered. My mirrors shook. This was not road rage. This was not impatience. This was controlled. I scanned the road ahead for lights, signs, anything. Nothing. Just more darkness and trees pressing closer. The pickup swerved slightly, as if lining up again. I could see the front grille now, dented, rusted. I could see something mounted on the front, low and dark, like a reinforced bar. Another hit came, angled this time, aimed at my rear tires. I felt the trailer tug but stayed upright. I knew then what they wanted. They wanted me stopped. They wanted me in a place where no one would see. I pushed the truck harder, knowing I was stressing the engine and the load. The speed climbed but not enough. The pickup was lighter, stayed glued to me. The road dipped into a shallow valley where fog pooled thick and low. My headlights cut a narrow tunnel. The pickup disappeared in the fog behind me, then reappeared closer, almost touching. I saw something ahead through the fog, a shape across the road. At first I thought it was a fallen branch. Then the shape resolved into something deliberate. A stack of wooden pallets laid flat, blocking most of the lane. I had seconds to react. Swerving would put me into the ditch. Hitting it could tear my axle or stop me cold. I chose the ditch. I steered hard right, riding the edge of the pavement. The truck dropped into the soft ground with a violent lurch. Mud and water sprayed. The trailer fishtailed but stayed upright. I fought the wheel, feeling every bounce through my arms. The pickup hit the pallets behind me. Wood exploded. The sound carried even over my engine. I did not stop. I dragged the truck through the ditch until the ground firmed up again and forced my way back onto the road. The tires screamed. The trailer groaned. But I was moving. The pickup took longer to recover. When it reappeared in my mirror, it was farther back. I drove until my hands went numb and my jaw ached from clenching. Eventually, the road widened and merged into a state highway with actual traffic. Headlights appeared ahead and behind. The pickup slowed and turned off onto a side road without signaling. I did not follow. I did not slow. I drove straight to the nearest open way station and parked under floodlights. In the light, I saw the damage. Deep dents in the trailer frame. Scrape marks along the rear tires. Mud packed into every crevice. Law enforcement arrived later. They walked the truck, took notes, and checked the road. The pallets were gone. No pickup was found. No cameras covered that stretch. I finished the run days late after repairs. The company logged it as an accident caused by road debris. That was easier for everyone. I do not take shortcuts anymore. I do not trust empty roads at night. And when I see a vehicle sit behind me too long without passing, I change routes while I still can. Because some roads are quiet for a reason, and some people use that silence on purpose. This was the summer of 1999. I was younger then, still learning what it meant to live on the road, still believing that exhaustion was something you could outwork if you stayed stubborn enough. I was hauling timber for a small outfit that ran on thin margins and favors. We were short on rigs, so they put 2 drivers in one truck to keep loads moving. One of us drove while the other slept in the passenger seat or on a thin mattress behind it. We rotated shifts wherever we could. It wasn't safe, but it was common. Northern Oregon was thick forest country, the kind that swallows roads whole if no one maintains them. That job had us cutting time by using old logging roads instead of the main highway. A mudslide had shut the highway down, and the detour was pitched to us as rough but passable. No signs warned us how bad it really was. Once we left pavement, the road narrowed fast. The shoulders softened into mud and pine needles. Trees crowded in so close their branches scraped the mirrors and left green streaks on the glass. The forest changed the sound of everything. The engine didn't echo the way it did on open road. It felt muted, like it was being wrapped in cloth. Even the crunch of gravel under the tires sounded distant. The air smelled wet and old, like rot and sap mixed together. Light barely reached the ground. The canopy above turned the day dim and green, and when evening came it felt like night arrived too early. I was awake in the passenger seat when we passed the clearing. I hadn't been sleeping much, but I wasn't tired enough to drift off yet. I remember watching the trees slide past and feeling like we were being pulled into something deeper. The clearing opened up on the right, sudden and wrong. Rusted logging equipment sat there half swallowed by moss and ferns. A loader leaned at an angle, its arm frozen mid-lift. An old fuel tank lay on its side, eaten through by rust. In the middle of it all stood something tall and grayish, perfectly still. At first I thought it was a tree stump shaped wrong. That happens in old cuts. Stumps rot unevenly, split, and twist. But this thing was straight, too straight. It had a narrow shape that rose higher than the surrounding stumps, almost level with the lower branches of the trees. The color wasn't bark brown. It was dull gray, like weathered stone or dried skin. I watched it as we rolled past, trying to make sense of it. The truck slowed. I felt it through the seat before I noticed the speed drop. Then it picked up again, sharper than before, like my driver had pressed down harder than needed. I didn't turn my head. I kept looking forward, but my eyes stayed fixed on the side mirror, waiting to see the clearing again. It vanished behind us. The road bent and the trees closed in. Neither of us said anything. We didn't need to. The truck filled with the steady pull of the engine and the quiet press of the forest. Night settled in fully as we pushed on. The road got worse. Ruts deepened. Mud pulled at the tires. Branches scraped the cab roof. Every few miles we passed another piece of old equipment, abandoned and rusted into the land. Around 1 in the morning we switched seats. I took the wheel and he moved to the passenger side. He didn't look at me while we changed over. His movements were tight, careful. Once he sat down, I noticed how often his eyes went to the mirrors. He kept checking them, then checking again, even when nothing could be behind us but trees and darkness. A few miles later, I smelled wet fur, came through the vents first, then filled the cab. It was thick and sour, like an animal that had been in the rain for days. I checked the gauges, thinking something had overheated or burned. Everything read normal. The smell stayed. The truck began to rock slightly. Not enough to throw me, but enough to notice. It felt like uneven ground at first, like one side riding higher than the other. Then it settled into a rhythm, a slow sway that matched our speed. I eased off the throttle. The sway stayed. I watched the edge of the road, scanning the beam of the headlights. Trees rushed past inches from the tires. When I slowed more, the rocking didn't fade. It shifted closer, like weight moving alongside us instead of under us. The smell grew stronger. My grip tightened on the wheel until my wrists hurt. We never saw it clearly. Whatever it was stayed just out of the light, moving with us. When I sped up, the rocking increased. When I slowed, it stayed right there, matching pace. The mirrors showed only darkness and blur. My passenger kept watching them, his body stiff, his breathing shallow. The forest felt tighter then. The road seemed to narrow even more. The engine labored as we climbed a shallow grade. Sweat ran down my back despite the cool air. The smell clung to everything, heavy and close. I focused on keeping the truck centered, on not letting the tires slip off the edge. After what felt like hours, the trees thinned. The road straightened. The sway eased as the ground firmed up. Then we hit pavement. The change was sudden and clean. The rocking stopped. The smell vanished like it had never been there. The truck rolled smooth and steady, engine sounding right again. We pulled onto a wider road and kept going until dawn. When daylight came, everything looked normal. Just forest and asphalt and an old logging route doing what it had done for decades. No marks on the truck. No damage. No signs that anything had paced us in the dark. 2 weeks later, my driving partner quit trucking. He didn't transfer to another outfit. He didn't take a break and come back. He walked away completely. I heard through the dispatcher that he said he was done with the road. No reasons given. No stories shared. I kept driving. Years passed. I learned more about northern Oregon and those old logging roads. I learned how black bears move when they're curious, how they can stand upright and look taller than trees when they stretch. I learned how elk smell when wet, how their bodies can brush a trailer and make it sway without leaving marks. I learned how exhaustion and silence can turn shapes into threats and smells into warnings. That tall gray thing in the clearing was a dead cedar trunk, stripped of bark and bleached by weather. I found a photo years later of the same clearing taken from a different angle. The shape matched. The pacing weight was wildlife drawn by sound and smell, moving alongside us through brush we couldn't see. The rocking came from uneven ground and side pressure. The fear came from two tired men trapped in a forest that didn't care about them. I still remember how tall that thing looked compared to the trees. Not because it was something unknown, but because it taught me how easy it is for the road to turn your mind against you when you push too hard, sleep too little, and drive places meant to be left alone after dark. I had been driving long haul for almost 11 years when this happened. I knew the roads, the rhythms, the way nights stretched out and days blurred together. I trusted routine more than instinct, and that mistake sat with me long after this run ended. I was hauling refrigerated food west through a wide stretch of empty country, the kind of land that flattens out so much it feels like the sky is pressing down. It was late fall, cold enough that the air felt sharp when I stepped out of the cab, but not cold enough for snow yet. The load was sealed and time-tight. I had driven past midnight already, chasing the hours because the receiver was strict. I felt fine, tired, but steady. The road had thinned down to 2 lanes hours earlier. Long gaps between exits. Long gaps between any lights that were not mine. The hum of the tires and the engine had become background noise, something I did not notice unless it changed. I liked that part of driving. It let my thoughts drift without slipping away. I first noticed the car behind me near a closed rest area. Just a pair of headlights, far back, keeping pace. That was normal. What caught my attention was how it stayed there. No passing, no falling back, just sitting in the same spot for mile after mile. I checked my mirrors more than once, mostly out of habit. The headlights were older, yellowed, and uneven. One seemed dimmer than the other. I forgot about it after a while. There was nothing to do about a car behind you on an empty road. Eventually the road curved, dipped, then straightened again. The headlights were still there. I pulled into a small fuel stop about an hour later. It was one of those places with a single pump island and a dark building that looked closed even when it was open. I needed fuel and a bathroom. When I slowed and turned in, the car slowed too. I watched in the mirror as it rolled past the entrance and continued down the highway. That should have been the end of it. I fueled, checked my tires, and went back inside the cab. When I pulled back onto the road and got up to speed, the headlights appeared again behind me within minutes. Same distance, same uneven glow. That was when I felt the first real edge of concern. It was small, but it stuck. I told myself it was coincidence. There were not many roads out there. Anyone heading west would be on the same stretch. The hours dragged. The land stayed empty. I passed a closed way station. The sign flashed that it was shut. The car slowed as I slowed, then matched speed again when I rolled through. I watched the mirrors more now. I changed speed slightly. The car adjusted with me. I did not feel panic yet. I felt watched. At one point, the car dropped back far enough that I thought it had finally turned off. I relaxed. I focused on the road again. 10 minutes later, it was back in the same place. Not closer, not farther. My phone had no signal. The radio hissed between weak stations. I thought about pulling over, but stopping on a dark shoulder in that place felt worse than moving. I thought about speeding up, but my truck was governed. I could not run even if I wanted to. The road narrowed more as it climbed into low hills. Trees closed in. The night felt heavier there. The car's headlights bounced as the road twisted. I caught a glimpse of the vehicle shape for the first time when we passed a reflective sign. It was an older sedan, dark-colored, maybe green or black. No markings, no roof rack, just plain. I began to notice something else. Whenever I checked my mirrors, the headlights dipped slightly, like the driver was adjusting position to stay out of full view. That made my stomach tighten. It was not casual following anymore. It felt deliberate. I reached a small pull-off meant for emergencies. I slowed and signaled, then rolled in. I wanted to see what the car would do. If it passed, I could breathe again. The car slowed and pulled in behind me. I did not stop fully. I rolled through the pull-off and back onto the road, heart pounding now, hands tight on the wheel. The car followed without hesitation. I knew then this was not nothing. I thought about calling dispatch, but the signal flickered and died again. I thought about law enforcement, but I did not know where I was exactly. Mile markers were sparse and hard to read in the dark. The car began to close the distance slowly, not rushing, just easing forward. The headlights grew brighter in my mirrors. I could see the outline of the hood now. I kept my lane steady. I did not brake. I did not swerve. I focused on staying calm. Another fuel stop appeared ahead, smaller than the last. Just a gravel lot and a single light. I decided to try one more time. I slowed and turned in sharply. The car turned in two, fast enough that gravel sprayed. That was when the fear fully settled in, heavy and cold. I did not stop. I looped the lot and exited again. The car followed again, closer now, almost tailgating. I could see movement inside the cab of the car, but no clear faces. The road ahead dropped into a shallow valley. Trees pressed closer. The shoulders narrowed. I realized how exposed I was. One truck, one driver, miles from help. I noticed something in the road ahead, a shape lying across part of my lane. At first I thought it was debris. Then I saw it was a strip of wood with something attached. Spikes. Long metal spikes driven through. I swerved just enough to miss it. My trailer tires cleared it by inches. In the mirror, I saw the car slow hard and stop before reaching it. The moment snapped into place in my head. This was planned. The car had been pacing me, waiting for a spot like this. I did not slow. I pushed the truck as hard as it would go. The engine roared louder. My hands shook. The car stayed behind, slower now, forced to navigate around the spikes. It took time. Enough time for me to widen the gap. I drove like that for nearly an hour, not letting off, watching every mirror, scanning every shoulder. My body ached from tension. My mouth was dry. Eventually, I saw lights ahead. Real lights. A larger highway intersection with a working rest area and traffic moving through. I pulled in without slowing much and parked under the brightest lights I could find. The car never followed me in. I stayed there until morning. I reported everything when daylight came. The spikes were gone when police checked the road later. No car matching the description was found. I finished the run late. Dispatch was understanding. I was not the same after. Now, when I drive at night, I watch my mirrors more than the road sometimes. I do not assume coincidence anymore. I do not trust empty stretches. I keep moving, and I keep my distance from anything that feels wrong. Because someone out there thought a dark road and a lone truck made an easy plan. And the only reason I am still here is because I did not stop. This happened in the fall of 1986, back when logs were kept on paper and nobody tracked you every second. You signed a sheet, took a copy, and drove. If something went wrong between point A and point B, there was space for it to disappear. I was hauling an empty trailer back through West Texas after a livestock drop-off near the border. It was supposed to be a dead run. No load, no rush, just miles and time. An empty trailer still makes noise. Chains rattle. Floorboards creak. Air moves through it and you hear the hollow echo when you hit bumps. This one didn't. From the first mile, it felt wrong. The truck pulled like it had weight. Not heavy like a full load, but enough that braking took longer than it should have. When I slowed for curves, the push came late and smooth, not sloppy like loose cargo, but steady. I told myself it was my head. I had been driving too long. The heat hadn't broken yet that year, even at night. West Texas holds warmth in the ground, and it comes back up after sunset. The road stretched straight and flat, oil pumps nodding in the distance like tired men. Radio reception came and went. I drove with the window cracked, letting dry air roll through the cab. Around 11:50 p.m., I pulled over onto a wide dirt turnout to check the latch. I couldn't ignore the feeling anymore. When I stepped out, the night felt quiet in a way that pressed on the ears. No wind, no insects, just the truck ticking as metal cooled. The trailer seal was intact. The latch hadn't been tampered with. Everything looked right from the outside. I climbed onto the rear bumper and cracked the doors just enough to look inside. I didn't swing them wide. The air that rolled out was warmer than it should have been. Not heat from the day. A damp warmth, close and stale. It smelled like iron, sharp and clean at the same time, the way blood smells before it turns. I didn't climb in. I didn't shine the light far. I closed the doors and set the seal back the way it was. My hands shook more than I liked, and I told myself it was adrenaline. Empty trailers can hold heat. Seals can trap air. Smells carry. Back on the road, the feeling didn't leave. Every bump brought a slow shift from behind me. Not a crash or a slide. A measured movement, like whatever was back there knew how much it could move without tipping. When I braked, the weight came forward in one clean push. When I accelerated, it settled back. I kept my speed steady. I didn't stop again. The miles ticked by under the headlights. I watched the mirrors more than the road, looking for sway or sparks. Nothing showed. The trailer tracked straight. As the night wore on, the smell came back, faint at first, then stronger when the air outside cooled. Iron and something animal. I cracked the window more, then closed it when dust kicked up. The radio died completely. The cab felt smaller than it ever had. Near dawn, I rolled into the yard. The sky was pale, the sun still below the horizon. Dock workers were already moving, forklifts humming. I backed the trailer into place and killed the engine. When the doors opened, the men froze. Nobody touched anything for a long moment. The trailer was empty. No pallets, no crates, no bodies. Just marks in the metal floor. Deep ones. Long gouges that ran in arcs, pressed hard enough to score steel. The walls were scuffed at shoulder height, dark streaks where something had rubbed again and again. The air inside was still warm. Paperwork said empty. The logs matched. My signature sat there clean and clear. Whatever had been inside wasn't supposed to exist on paper, and by morning it didn't. I stayed long enough to answer questions no one wrote down. Then I left. Later, I learned what made sense of it all, piece by piece, from other drivers and from things said too casually to be official. That route was used for moving livestock that didn't have clean paperwork. Animals bought cheap, moved fast, sold before questions caught up. Sometimes trailers were sealed and marked empty to avoid inspections. Sometimes animals broke free. A panicked steer or bull can tear metal when it throws its weight. Hooves can dig into steel if the animal slips and fights to stand. Heat builds fast in a sealed box, and the smell of iron comes quick when skin breaks. If the trailer stopped overnight, if the latch was old or the seal weak, an animal could force a door enough to get out. In the dark, on open land, it wouldn't be hard for it to disappear. By dawn, all that would be left were marks and heat and a driver who felt the weight but never saw the cause. I quit long-haul driving that year, not because of ghosts or stories, because I learned how much can happen between lines on a log sheet and how easy it is for the road to ask you to carry things you were never meant to see. This happened in February of 2007. I was hauling electronics overnight through western Pennsylvania, running a tight schedule and trying to stay ahead of a snowstorm pushing in from the west. I had checked the forecast earlier that night and knew I needed to find a place to sleep before dawn. Once the snow hit those hills, there would be no safe shoulder stops and no easy exits. I chose that route because it usually had enough services spaced out for overnight drivers. At least that's what I thought at the time. By the time the clock on my dash rolled past 4 in the morning, my eyes were burning. I had been driving since early evening, living off coffee that tasted burnt and stale. The road was empty, the kind of empty that only happens in winter before sunrise. No headlights coming the other way, no taillights ahead, just black pavement cutting through darker hills. That's when I saw the sign. It was small and unlit, just reflective paint catching my headlights. It showed a rest stop symbol and an arrow pointing right. No name, no mile marker. I slowed without thinking. I don't remember deciding to take it. I just did. The exit ramp curved off the highway and dropped into a shallow dip between trees. The snow hadn't reached this area yet, but the air felt damp and heavy, like it was waiting. The rest stop wasn't on my route map. It just appeared. One low concrete building. One bathroom entrance on each side. No fuel pumps. No vending machines. No picnic tables. The parking lot was wide but mostly empty. A few old oil stains marked where trucks had parked before. The lights stood on tall poles, flickering like they were struggling to stay on. Each one buzzed softly, the sound uneven and tired. I parked at 4:18 a.m. I remember the time because I looked at the dash before shutting the engine down. When the engine cut, the silence hit hard. No wind, no highway noise, no distant traffic hum. It felt like sound had been pulled out of the air. Even my ears rang. I stepped down from the cab and stretched. The cold pressed in right away, not sharp but deep. As I walked toward the building, my boots scraped over marks on the pavement near other truck spots. At first I thought they were tire scuffs. Then I looked closer. They were scratches, long and uneven, running toward the edge of the lot, like something heavy had been dragged across the asphalt. Not rolled, dragged. I didn't like that, but I kept going. Fatigue makes you ignore things you shouldn't. The bathroom building looked older than it should have been. The concrete was stained dark near the base. Paint peeled around the doorframe. Inside, the lights flickered worse than outside. One stall door hung crooked. The sinks didn't work. I turned the handles and got nothing. The mirrors above them were cracked, each fracture spreading out like spiderwebs. The air inside smelled damp and stale. Not sewage, just old moisture and cold concrete. I didn't see anyone else in there, but the feeling hit me the moment I stepped inside. The sense of being watched. Not imagined eyes or shapes, just a steady pressure between my shoulders, like someone stood too close behind me. I kept my back to the wall as much as I could and finished fast. When I walked back out, the parking lot looked the same, but the silence felt thicker. I scanned the lot, checking between the light poles and the tree line. Nothing moved. No doors opened. No engines turned over. My truck sat where I left it, trailer dark and still. The passenger door was unlocked. I stood there staring at it, keys tight in my hand. I always lock it. Always. It's muscle memory from years on the road. Lock doors. Check mirrors. Set brake. The handle wasn't broken. No signs of forced entry. Just unlocked. I climbed in slowly and checked the sleeper. Nothing was missing. My bag was where I left it. My jacket still hung on the hook. But the mattress told a different story. Right in the center, near the edge, was a deep impression. Not a crease or a fold. A clear dent, shaped like someone had been sitting there for a while. The foam hadn't sprung back yet. I stood there longer than I should have, breathing shallow, listening. The silence outside pressed in through the cab walls. I checked under the bunk, behind the seats, every corner. Nothing. No one. I didn't sleep. I started the engine, the sound almost painful in the quiet, and pulled out of the lot. As I rolled past the building, I watched it in the mirror until it disappeared into darkness. When I hit the on-ramp, the highway felt loud and alive by comparison. Later that day, after I delivered the load and caught real sleep, I tried marking the stop on my GPS. It wasn't there. I searched for rest areas along that stretch. Nothing matched. I checked satellite maps. I zoomed in and out, looking for the shape of the lot or the building. No trace. Over the next few weeks, curiosity turned into unease. I dug deeper. I pulled old highway plans from state records. That stretch of road had been rerouted in the early 1990s. An older rest stop had existed there before the change. It had been closed after repeated vandalism and safety complaints. Officially decommissioned, removed from maps, supposed to be fenced off and inaccessible. But old access roads don't vanish overnight. Barriers get moved. Signs get left behind. Maintenance gets skipped. Locals know these places, so do people with nowhere else to go. The scratches on the pavement came from scrapped equipment and debris dragged across the lot over years. The broken mirrors and dead sinks were from neglect and vandalism. The mattress impression came from someone using my cab as shelter while I was inside, slipping out when they heard me return, knowing how to move quietly through parked trucks because they'd done it before. The reason I couldn't find records or reviews was simple. It wasn't supposed to exist anymore. I still think about how easy it was to miss the signs, how tired I was, how quiet that place felt, how someone could have been that close without me ever seeing them. I don't stop at unmarked rest areas anymore. If it's not on my map, I keep driving, snowstorm or not. Some places fade off the books but never fully disappear, and the road remembers even when the maps don't.